It is the first week of August, and you know what that means. It is less than a month to a college football season, and I'm here to give my predictions on as many college football teams as I can. At least I'll try all the Power 5, but today we're going to start off with my team, the Florida Gators. Now, the Florida Gators went 6-7 last year with some good wins, some really bad losses, really close games, but a lot of potential for the 2023 season. Now, to go ahead and open up the 2023 season, we have Utah on August the 31st. That's on a Thursday at 7 p.m. Now, the game is at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Last year it was in Florida. Florida barely edged that one out. I really think Utah's going to win this one. I think they are the 8-point favorite. And to be with the 8-point favorite, I mean, you're going to have a lot of favors. Now, they were favored last year, but this year, I think that they're going to be favored even more. I think Utah takes the win 28-20. September 9th, at home against McNeese at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium at Steve Spurrier Field. Now, this is an obvious pick. The Gators are going to win this one. This is an FCS team. It's not common. It's really rare to see an FCS team beat an FBS team, and I don't see this being the time that it'll happen. I mean, you never know, but I do have the Gators taking the win here. Now, on September 16th, at 6 p.m. on ESPN, the Gators take on the Tennessee Volunteers. Now, last year, the Volunteers and the Gators had a really good game. Now, the Magic Predictor on ESPN predicts the Gators to win just by 1.7%. Over 50. They're the 51.7% favorites, but on Caesars Sportsbook, they are 7-point underdogs. The Gators do have a chance to redeem themselves from last year, and if they want to become a really good team this year, they're really going to have to defeat the Vols. I do have the Volunteers winning. Barely. This is a night game in Florida. If Florida does win, it'll be really close, but I think Tennessee is just going to be able to just kill it in the air. I don't think the defense is ready. I think our defense is more prepared for the running games, and that's just not what Tennessee is about right now. With Joe Milton coming in at quarterback, I do think that the Tennessee Vols will take this one. Now, September 23rd, the Gators take on the Charlotte 49ers. Now, of course, the Gators are huge favorites in this one. This is going to be a really fun game to see the offense run the ball. Just like against McNeese, this is going to be a fun game to see the offense just go crazy. I do have the Gators winning this one, of course, and with a huge win over Charlotte. Going in September 30th at Kentucky. Now, last year, the Gators struggled against Kentucky at home. They did have a halftime lead over Kentucky last season, but Kentucky came out winning 26-16. Will Levis had a good game, but you are losing Levis to the NFL. I do think that Kentucky's going to win this one. I think that they probably have a little bit of a better run game. I think the defense will be able to do well against Florida, so I do have the Wildcats taking the W here, but also in another really close game. And then the next week on October the 7th, you play Vanderbilt. Now, this is a big revenge game for the Gators, as last season when they faced off against Vanderbilt, they did lose to Vandy. The week after, Vandy defeated Kentucky. Those were their first two SEC wins in a long time. This year, I do think Florida wins. This will be at Florida. This is going to be a big game for the Gators to show that they are, not going to stoop down to that level again and lose to Vanderbilt. I do think they win. I do think Vandy takes a step down this year. Probably stay 5-7, 4-8, whatever. I do think the Gators win this one. And now the week after, the Gators go to South Carolina. Now, last season, the Gators came out heavy. And I mean, they just absolutely destroyed the Gamecocks. I do believe they won 36-6. Let me just check. No, they won 38-6. That was a big game for the Gators. And a lot of people expected it to be closer. Shane Beamer, of course, going into another season with the Gamecocks. I do know what season this is for him, but I think that South Carolina's defense is not going to be able to stop the run from the Gators. I think depending on if our defense can really stop them, depending on if they run the ball heavy or pass the ball heavy, no matter what, I feel like this game is up to Florida's defense to win the game, but I do have the Gators coming out with the win against South Carolina. And now you play against Georgia on after the bye week on October 28th. This is that 2:30 game Central or 3:30 Eastern on the CBS time slot. They usually get this time slot every year. This is a neutral site game. Gators playing against the defending two-time national champions. I do not think the Gators will come out of this. I think this is just going to be an absolute beating by Georgia. I do think that our defense is going to look a lot better against Georgia this year than it did last year, but I think that Georgia's defense is just going to stop the run. And I think Graham Mertz is not going to be able to pass at all this game. I think they're going to be able to stop the pass too. So I do believe that Georgia will win, and this one won't be pretty. I do think Georgia wins, and they win big against the Gators. And now coming into the next week, which this would be week 10, I believe, against the Arkansas Razorbacks. Now, Arkansas started off the season last year looking pretty decent. They started off the year with 3 wins, but they did look a little iffy against Missouri State. They did lose against Texas A&M and Alabama, then Mississippi State pretty bad. And then they went really downhill afterward. A lot of people are high on KJ Jefferson. They're also really high on the running back room for Arkansas, but I do think that the Gators pick up the win here in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. I'm not too sure how Arkansas's defense is, but I do think that the Gators pick up this win here. It's all going to depend on how well KJ Jefferson plays. But other than that, I do think the Gators pick up the win here. And now you play against LSU, and this will be at LSU on November 11th. This is going to be a very, very interesting game. Now, LSU, I do believe, will be either first or second in the SEC West by this point, depending on how they fare against Alabama. Now, this is going to be an interesting game. I do predict this to be another one of those night games. This is probably going to be a win for the Tigers. They looked great last year. They beat the Gators last year. I think it was 42-28, if I'm not mistaken. If you look at the ESPN analytics, they are the 81.5% on the matchup predictor and are favored by 16 points on Caesars Sportsbook, but this is still the preseason. We're still months away, but I do agree. I think LSU pulls out the win and the Gators go home with a loss. And now the next week you play at Missouri, November 18th. The Gators defeated Missouri last season. I think it was another one of those really closer games for the Gators, but this season I really do think that the Gators pick up another win. Missouri and Vanderbilt, I feel like will be fighting for last place in the East, depending on who gets the bowl and who doesn't. I think one of these teams will go 6-6, and the other will go 5-7 or 4-8. So I do think the Gators pick up the win here against Missouri last year. No, okay, so the Gators won last year 24-17. My bad. It wasn't as close as I thought it was. This season, I think the Gators pull out with a victory against Missouri in Columbia. This will probably be one of those 11 or 12 Eastern at noon game. So I don't think it's going to be too crazy of a crowd. I think the Gators win this one. And then to end off the season, I do predict that the Gators will lose to the Florida State Seminoles in the rivalry game. This is the Sunshine Showdown. Say that 3 times fast. Talk about a tongue twister. But I think this could be a really big mix-up game. You know, this game really does show you don't have to be the better team to win this game, at least throughout the season. You might be the better team on that day. This rivalry game has shown comebacks, it's shown upsets, it's shown dominations, it's shown close games, it's shown just about everything you can think about between two absolute rivals. But I do think this is a 50-50 game. I think a lot of people are going to choose Florida State, but if I'm going to have to choose one, I'm going to have to take Florida State too. Florida State, as of now, is a 7.5-point favorite against the Gators. They are probably going to have a great preseason ranking, and I do think that Florida State's going to edge it out against the Gators. And to end off the predictions, I do predict Florida to go 6-6. At worst, I really do think they could go 5-7, and at best, I think they could go 8-4 at the best. Now, in my opinion, there are two mix-up games for me, and that's the Kentucky game and Tennessee/Florida State. I think they'll win at least maybe one out of those three, but just from the preseason standard, I do think they lose all three of those. So I do believe that they will go 6-6, maybe 7-5, but I do believe that they will get a bowl bid, and hopefully they'll play better in their bowl game than they did against Oregon State in the Vegas Bowl last season, where they got absolutely mollywopped and didn't score until the fourth quarter with a last-second field goal to keep the streak alive of not getting shut out for a consecutive amount of seasons or games. So to wrap it up, 6-6 for the Gators. They'll probably finish third to last in the East, maybe second to last, depending on how either Missouri or Vanderbilt do. But I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel. Follow my Twitter, my Instagram. The names are in the description. And I will see you guys later for another video.